that weed.
Is that a weed?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Mommy's tomato plants that I planted from seed indoors, and some of them are doing well, some of them aren't.
Can I get some like seeds that you put in, plop in?
We're gonna do that, but first we need to prep stuff a little bit better. I need to figure out how many tomatoes I'm gonna plant. Daddy told me to plant a more manageable garden this year because I overplant and I can't keep up with it all.
Mom, can I hold it? Mommy, can I do it?
You know what? I need you to turn up this. Actually, see that whole plot where the camera is? I need all of that dug up. See, let me show you guys something. Come here, boys. Come here. Come here. Every part of this is weeds. Could you work on that, buddy, and just turn that all up and into soil? This is where Mommy's gonna put a flower bed, but it's way, 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 way overgrown. We need to dig it all up. See, we could take these. You know what I did last time I did this? I brought every last one of these over to the goats. Like, they love a pile of weeds. So put all the weeds here in this basket, like this, and then we're gonna go give it to the goats in a little bit. They love it. Okay? But I'm trying to get most of the soil.
Do they love it way more than grain?
No, but they like it a lot. Not more than grain.
Grain is like
A lot of these are just viney things, and they come up real easy.
But grain's like candy for them.
Yes. Daniel, are you just relaxing in your chair? They're fine. They're fine. Come here, Danny. Look. Okay, it is so bright, but this here is my herb bed. This is what I planted last year as my herb bed. I like it because it's the closest to the house. It's still kind of far, so I should probably put another herb bed closer. I planted several transplants that I started indoors: basil, thyme, sage, and some of them are doing okay, some of them are not because I let them get really overgrown inside, and then it got really cold the day after. So I'm gonna see how they do. I also bought a few more herbs just to supplement in here. And then a few things came back. So I noticed here I have some thyme that came back, and then some sage also that came back from last year. I also bought my massive rosemary plant that I put by the garden gate. I did that last year and it lasted me all year. Everything had rosemary. I'm ready to go already on rosemary, so I like buying that large and ready to go. Right, I am going to get some sourdough bread in the oven, and we're gonna do a really easy lunch because we're out in the garden. Luke has all 6 kids outside. I'm gonna get some bread in the oven and head back out there as we finish getting the garden put in and cleaned up and all of that good stuff. And so we're just gonna do super easy lunch. I love days like this, especially in the summer months where we just don't spend a whole lot of time in the kitchen. I'm just doing stuff that's gonna be quick and easy. I actually got 4 loaves going yesterday, so I'm gonna just keep them going, and then we'll probably eat at least 1.5 for lunch, and then we'll have extra, which I've never done. I had to clear a whole shelf on the refrigerator for my overnight bread rising, and 2 of them had to go in glass bowls with tea towels, and 2 went in my Banneton baskets because I only have 2. Jenna, will you please also get out the lettuce, mayonnaise? There's
I can't get out the lettuce because of the block.
Jenna, would help you cut that cheese?
Yes. I don't know why I use this weird little knife.
I use a butter or bread knife for it. That's good.
Oops. Is that camera recording or did you just set it down like that?
It's recording. A little bit of lunch scenes.
Are you doing a vlog?
Yeah, planting the garden vlog.
Is that really the day for today?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm kind of wondering the same
Everybody
thing.
does it. Just people just want to know. You know one person that doesn't have a garden?
Yeah.
Oh.
You got a meat sandwich and a PBJ, Eli?
Mm-hmm.
Pickles?
And I have PBJ and a pickle.
Right, this is definitely the wrong time of year for this, but I've been enjoying it anyway. Just a chai tea latte with some steamed cream and syrup. It's so good, and so it tastes like fall, but it's a good afternoon treat. All right, here's what I'm gonna plant in addition to a lot of the plants I already have. Lots of flowers. We're gonna plant some shorter sunflowers along the exterior of the white picket fence. One of my kids really wanted to plant watermelon, and then so many flowers. I'm gonna plant a lot of flowers this year. I thought about planting these, but I don't know if we have any space. All right, Luke and I just went to check in with our fence guy. We are determining the size that we want the post to be out of the ground because we're putting up I believe it's called a rail fence, where there'll be posts and then there'll be boards across, so it'll look really nice next to the road, and then the fencing up around the house is just going to be more basic woven wire and posts, but we're just gonna put something nicer by the road. So that's what we're getting completed now. I can't wait to share that all with you. I'm gonna make some dinner. I have a chicken. It's been going in the oven for about an hour, and then I'm going to make a salsa. Now this is something I've started doing recently. A few nights ago, I really wanted some salsa and I couldn't find any in the pantry, any in the fridge, and so I had to take matters into my own hands. I did have canned tomatoes, frozen sweet corn, and I had a can of organic black beans, onions, jalapenos, I had some limes, and I made the most delicious salsa. And so this is like my new thing. I think it's so good. Oh, and of course, some salt and pepper. This time I had some beans I made yesterday for a soup, so I just had them in the refrigerator. I might even today throw in some diced avocado, but I think we're also gonna make some guacamole to go with this. So we're just gonna have like chicken and chips and guacamole. I also have some salsa in the fridge, some fresh salsa without jalapenos that I can give the kids. Now lately, all of the jalapenos we've been getting have been not spicy. So if that's the case with this one, they can just eat this version of it. Why don't you go get out the avocados and start making guacamole?
I need my chips though.
Huh? Yeah, you need your chips to taste test. Thought I would end this vlog out in the garden where I started, and talk about a few gardening Q&As. I put out a gardening Q&A question box over on Instagram and got a few questions. And then I also want to talk a little bit about using essential oils in the garden. My goats are being really loud. But we finally got this garden all planted. I did a few things differently this year. Couple of lessons that I learned from last year are, number one, not to overplant. I have a tendency to underestimate the size that everything gets by about July, and I can let my little plot turn into a jungle, and it's a mistake that I've made year after year. And so I really try to be diligent this year in planting what I actually think I can use and preserve and weed and keep up with and water, and not any more than that, even though I would like to be more self-sufficient. I just know that right now where we are in our lives, it's not that time. And so I try to plant a really manageable garden. Also, I didn't plant any pumpkins. I did that last year and they took over. I had 30-foot vines just going out of the picket fence, taking over everything. And I didn't even get that many pumpkins anyway. So I decided this year, no pumpkins. Now, if I were to do pumpkins, I would put them in a separate, like a pumpkin patch that we tilled up. We didn't get to that, and we might still because it's only May as I'm recording this video. So maybe by June we'll till up a spot and put a pumpkin patch in, possibly, or we'll just buy pumpkins this year. That's the coolest thing about all of this. And I have to remind myself, we have farmers markets. We have gardeners in the area who like to sell extra stuff. And so I don't have to take all of this burden on myself. Before I jump into the Q&A on Instagram, I'm going to answer a few questions over there, but I want to talk a little bit about essential oils in the garden and what I use and what is good to use. And I'm going to try to be a lot more diligent this year to use them frequently and just get all of those problems that are happening, address them right away. So one thing that can happen a lot is pests like squash bugs, aphids. Those are something that I usually do experience, and good essential oils for that are peppermint and rosemary. So what I'm planning to do this year is get a glass spray bottle, add about 10 drops of essential oil, top it off with water, and then spray the plants that are attracting bugs and try to get that problem gone before any damage is done. Another problem that I experience a lot in my garden, and I know that this can be from inconsistent watering and other things, but are fungal issues. So for example, getting blight on tomato plants, and a good essential oil for that is tea tree oil. So I plan to do the same thing, 10 drops, spray bottle, topped off with water, sprayed on those plants that are having that issue. Now tea tree can be an oil that will burn up your plants, so you'll want to either spray it around the base of the plant and also maybe in the evening or morning before the hot sun. And another thing I want to try this year is creating a pollinator spray. So good oils for that are lavender and orange. You can put them in a spray bottle, spray around the garden to create that scent, or even just soak something like a tea towel or a cotton ball and laying it in certain areas around the garden will help to attract pollinators, which is really good for the garden. I also plant flowers for this reason. Well, it's not really the reason I plant flowers, but it's a good reason to plant flowers. I plant flowers because they're beautiful, and it's something that I can't really find easily. So like I said before, with organic, locally grown vegetables, I can find those all day. If I wanted to have no garden and just preserve all of the harvest for the year, I could easily do it just by visiting farmers markets or buying in bulk from different farmers and making deals with farmers to get a percentage of their whatever crop I wanted. I can do that. That's readily available. What I do find difficult to find is flowers, and nothing livens up our farmhouse in the summer like flowers. It just makes me so happy to go around, cut and make bouquets and freshen up every area of the house, and it's only something I can do in the summer. It makes me feel like I really experienced summer, and so I love flowers. Honestly, I feel like sometimes I should just get rid of all of the vegetables and just plant this massive flower garden, but I probably could never make that many bouquets either. So going back to my taking care of what I have, small amounts, I still think even with the flowers, I want to plant enough that I could have fresh flowers all summer, but not let a lot of go to waste. But even still, just walking through it is magical. So this year I planted zinnias, cosmos, a bunch of varieties of sunflowers. I also this year chose to do shorter sunflowers. In the past, I've done 7-foot tall, and they do a lot of crowding out and shading, obviously. So we might find another spot to put those in somewhere else on our property if we get to that. But I'm really feeling like manageable is going to be my motto for this year. And so just this small area, taking care of it, weeding it, watering it daily is going to be my strategy. All right, I'm going to jump in and just answer just a few questions. As I was looking through them, I realized that there's some questions here I just don't know the answer to. I've been gardening for probably 10 years now, something like that. Shortly after marriage, I started putting in a garden. And so I do have knowledge of what all the seedlings look like and how to take care of plants and what to do with certain crops. But I also feel like I don't have an advanced knowledge of gardening. Some of the questions I'm like, I really honestly just don't even know. Okay, the most common question I got is for beginners, how to get started. First thing I would say is ignore too much advice in the beginning. It really is such a simple process. You could just plant or till up a small little section of your yard, put seeds in, water them every day until they sprout, because seeds do need water to germinate. I find that if I plant something and it doesn't rain and I don't water it, nothing comes up. After that, even watering about once a week, once they're nicely established, is good. Start with 1 tomato plant, 1 basil, a pepper plant. Those are some of my favorite things that are really easy. You don't really have to know a whole lot. Weed them, make sure that nothing can get into it, and get your feet wet with it. If you don't want to till a little plot, you could build a little raised bed. We made ours last year, or actually 2 years ago, out of cedar fence pickets, and at the time it was a $15 raised bed. Now it's probably more like 30 or 40 with the way lumber prices are. But even still, you could build one small raised bed and just start with 4 or 5 plants, learn what the seedlings look like. I know one of my first years, my biggest issue was I couldn't figure out what were the weeds and what the plants were. That's something that once you've been gardening a while, it's really easy to identify. You know exactly what a tomato poking out of the ground looks like, what a pepper poking out, or a zinnia, or carrots. You just know. But at first you don't. And so I recommend doing a Google search. Search tomato seedling, or just tomato seedling 1 week past planting, or something like that, so that you can identify it and then weed all around it, because you might not know which one you're picking. But it really isn't much more difficult than that. Don't let all of the advice and the books overwhelm you. If you want to just put in a simple garden year after year, there isn't a ton that you have to know. Now, you could take that knowledge really far and be very advanced, but you don't have to. And so if you're a first timer, I recommend, I don't learn by reading as much, or getting all of the information as much as I do trying something. So I recommend just putting a few things in the ground, tending them, weeding, watering, and you should be good to go. What fruits and vegetables grow well in pots, balcony, or back deck garden? Herbs are really good for that, because you can use a small pot. They don't need a bunch of root space. They don't get super tall. They're cool because you can pick off a little bit and then more grows back in. One of the things to remember with any container gardening is you're gonna have to water a lot. So pretty much daily, maybe every other day. But if it's a hot, sunny summer day, pots just drain. And the kind of soil that you usually put in a container garden is it just drains well. And so I find that anytime I have a container garden, I just have to water it a lot more and take care of it, but it is totally possible. I also do find that certain things just don't get as big and nice in a container. So tomatoes, they can totally be grown in a container. I'm sure there's people out there who are like, yeah, right, I do that so well. I grow hundreds of tomatoes in a pot. I can never get mine to get as big as when I put them in the ground or a raised bed. But that can be done. I wouldn't recommend doing like a zucchini or a cucumber or something that vines out and gets really huge. That's something I probably wouldn't attempt. Or anything that gets very tall. So as far as flowers go, zinnias, cosmos, they are going to get 8 feet tall sometimes. I've had cosmos that tall. So I wouldn't recommend that. But herbs are always a good choice, and tomatoes, peppers are what I would recommend. What herbs do you grow? So I love my herb garden. If I planted nothing else, I would plant herbs. My light keeps changing. They flavor up everything so well, and to me they just taste like summer, because I do buy some fresh herbs throughout the winter, but most meals just don't have it. I have a dried herb. It's a totally different taste to have fresh herbs versus dry, and so I love summer herbs. It tastes like summer. It is the essence of summer to me. My favorites are basil, cilantro, which I have a hard time growing cilantro. I find that it bolts really easily in the hot summer sun, so it's better grown in the early summer or late summer in my experience, but I love it. I wish I could have infinite amounts, whereas like basil, it just grows and grows. I have no trouble here growing basil, and I get always more than I even could know what to do with. Whereas cilantro, it's more sparing, it's only certain seasons. Thyme is really easy here, rosemary, parsley. I don't honestly love parsley as much, but I do keep it around for some things. It's just not my favorite herb, but I do always grow it, and it's really easy. It also often, unless we get a really cold winter, it comes back. Same with thyme and same with sage. This year, what I planted last year actually did come back. So I don't really know the science behind that, but it's just something I've observed year after year, that unless it gets extremely cold, that stuff always does winter for me. And then parsley will go well into past several frosts until it gets extremely cold. You can still harvest parsley. Okay, lots of questions about seedlings. Pros and cons of starting your own seedlings versus buying them pre-grown. Personally, I do not love starting seedlings. I've done it. I do it most years just out of this like excitement to get started whenever it's March and there's nothing else I can do. So unless you're prepared enough ahead, which I'm not always am. Some years I am, some years I'm not. But unless you want to grow something that you can't find at the farmer's market. So right now at farmer's markets, all of the farmers are selling their seedlings, and they're nice, and that farmer's been watering them, taking care of them the whole time. It's honestly worth it to me for all of the trouble, because growing seedlings indoors means you need to water every single day. The soil gets dry easily. You need to have a dedicated spot in your house. You need light. You need it to be warm enough. So they're finicky, and then you need to harden them off to make sure that they don't just die when they come out. And so honestly, unless you're going to order some rare seeds, even not even rare, but just typically in my area, what I can buy now that's already been started are tomatoes, peppers, all the basic herbs, which I usually, for the most part, just plant seeds right in the ground, and those do well as well. But there's nothing too crazy. Things like cucumber and zucchini, I would never worry about buying a start for that or starting it indoors, because they pop out of the ground and are huge within days. But if you want to grow something that you're not going to be able to find, that's when you want to start seedlings. But if you're just going to go buy a basic tomato seed at the feed store or wherever you buy seeds and nurture it all, March and April and May, and right now it's still cold a lot of times. I'm still wearing a long sleeve shirt. There's not an 80-degree high in the whole 10-day forecast. And so it's still not really, my tomatoes aren't going to even thrive out here. So it's been months since I started that seedling indoors. Honestly, if you're new at this, I would recommend, maybe trying a few, but personally, I like buying the already grown seedlings. It's my favorite because it just does take a lot of diligence and care all winter. And with kids, I'll forget about it, and then or if you have a greenhouse or somewhere dedicated. We give up our dining room for it. I water every day. The kids help, so that's kind of a fun, I look at it sort of as like a homeschool experiment too. But cost-wise, I wouldn't say it's super effective because of how much time it takes. Top 5 things to plant. If I could only plant 5 things. Cucumbers, I like to ferment those. Fresh peppers, tomatoes. Hopefully I could just count flowers as one, even though it's a variety. But I'll just say cosmos if I had to choose. And basil. That would be my top 5. how do you manage a garden and family duties? They both require so much care and attention. So that's the reason why we're scaling back, and I'm trying to keep it pretty manageable because I've struggled with that as well. And then also this year, we're going to be better about getting the kids out here. So we have a plan that we're going to, after our morning homeschool time, which we're just going to continue all summer, we're going to come out here in the garden and work for a half hour or an hour with everybody pulling weeds. And so hopefully, with our kids being a little older now, the oldest 3 or 4 are 12, 10, 8, and 5. So they are a little bit older and able to help. Hopefully it will be a family experience that will merge together. And my goal is to just not stress myself out. I love summer so much. It is my favorite season. I want to take the kids to the pool a ton. I want to just really fully enjoy summer. And so I am keeping the garden manageable this year. And I'm not going to be spending all of my time in here. I'm just not. All right, I will just answer 2 more. One I got a lot is, are you going to can? Do you aim to feed your family for the year? That all sounds really magical and romantic to me, and I love the idea. But I've come to the terms with the fact that that's not going to happen right now. And it could, you know, if our food did need to rely on that, it could. But since it doesn't, and I can get it in so many other sources, I'm not going to do that. I do love the idea, and I sometimes wish that we do that, but I don't have to. And so we're not going to. But I will continue to opt for local and fresh of sources as I can and as time will allow. We will can some just whenever we come across, like for example, I usually will buy a ton, just, I don't know, 10 heads or more of cabbage from somebody and make enough sauerkraut for the entire summer. I could buy more of that, but that's one way I love to preserve. I don't normally can something like tomatoes just because I can get organic canned tomatoes all winter so cheaply. So at some point I probably will do that, but not at this current time. Also, another thing I need to tell you that I'm not going to do this year is I'm not planting carrots. I almost grabbed the packet of carrots and my son was like, "Oh mom, carrots." And I'm like, you know what? No. Those are just one of those things where if you can do carrots if you have the time, but they're very, very tiny little seedlings and weeding around them is difficult, and you devote a whole bed to it and then you just get enough carrots to last the summer, and you could have just bought organic carrots. Fresh carrots are delicious. They're so delicious. So if I come across a farmer at the market who diligently cared for carrots all summer long, I will buy a ridiculous quantity of them. So I'm gonna keep my eyes out for that because I'd love to have them, but I do not love growing them. Okay, the last question I'll take is how to compost. This is something that we've done for a long time. There's an airplane. And we just put all of our scraps for the year and throughout the year in this one little area. Luke just put a couple of pallets and then he turns it over throughout the year. We're not super fancy with it, but we did pull out some really rich soil for one of our raised beds that we topped off with and amended yesterday from the compost. So it does work, and it's something that you can do all year, all winter, to be excited and prepare for gardening. So we don't make compost overly difficult. I know there's better ways to do it, but we throw coffee grounds, vegetable peelings, anything fruit and vegetable related into it, and then just stir it. And then also it's good to water it. But we get enough rain where we are that's usually fine. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed following along with us as we put in our garden. I will keep you updated. Last year, I feel like I didn't update too often. That's because I let my garden turn into a complete jungle that I could hardly walk through. So hopefully I will be able to manage it better this year. I also want to tell myself that if there are too many of anything to thin out, that's really important, and I hate doing it. I hate thinning out because I have a perfectly healthy plant I'm ripping up. I hate ripping out volunteer plants, but I'm gonna have to do it because that is how you avoid garden jungle, which happens to me just about every year. All right, well, I hope that you all are enjoying spring where you are. If you are brand new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I make 2 new videos every week on food from scratch, natural living, and a handmade home. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.